Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Dynow's August Lunch and Learn on Dynow's back to school checklist and going back to school with Dyknow. Hope you all are having a great afternoon or morning wherever you're joining us from. And we thank you for joining us today. So today we're going to be talking about going back to school with Dyknow. Whether you are an existing customer or you're new to Dyknow and unfamiliar with Dyknow, I think this session will be really beneficial for you to understand kind of what's involved in going back to school with Dyknow. Even if you're already back to school, just good things to have top of mind as you start the school year. We'll be talking about some reminders to do regarding setting up your Dyknow account, making sure everything is good to go in terms of rostering and setup for your teachers to monitor successfully during the school year. We'll give an overview of some feature updates that were released during the summer. And then we're also going to supply you with some materials for PD training and professional development, as well as other kind of training initiatives that you need to do with your teachers as you go back to school. So excited to have you today. This session is going to be a bit more interactive than all of our other lunch and learns, and I highly encourage you to ask any questions that you have throughout the session. Just drop those in the Zoom Q&A. I'll be keeping a close eye on that while Casey is going through her presentation, and we're happy to answer those at the end for you, and happy to take any questions that you have related to Dyknow as we go through today's session. So I know probably most of you are Dyknow customers who are joining us today to learn about going back to school, but for anyone who's joining us who is not a current Dyknow user, Dyknow is a classroom monitoring solution for school issued devices. And we refer to ourselves as classroom monitoring, but actually during remote learning since March 2020, usage of Dyknow went up 300% in the remote and hybrid classroom. So we've really come to the conclusion recently that Dyknow is not just a tool for the classroom, it's a tool that's essential when going to remote and hybrid learning. So we're encouraged by that usage and really excited to help our teachers continue to learn and teach remotely and in hybrid settings regardless of what happens this coming school year, because it's been a bit unprecedented to say the least. So our primary offering is our classroom management solution, which is a monitoring solution for teachers to get visibility of student devices in the classroom, kind of a classroom level content filter, if you will, where they can block off-task sites and apps so that they can really teach effectively with devices, as well as some other engagement tools and class analytics following class. And then our supplementary offering is the device impact measurement module. And that is for admins to really get an aggregate of data for device activity throughout the entire school day, not just in those individual classes that teachers are monitoring. Really understand where your investments are going, how those are being used in terms of the devices you've bought, and also all of those websites and applications that you've implemented to help teachers teach and students learn. So that's kind of an overview of Dyknow and our monitoring solutions. We'll jump into the session now. So if you had registered prior to the session today, you should have received an email this morning, and it included a PDF document in it. And that is just our interactive Dyknow back to school checklist that we're providing you alongside this session. I'm going to drop the download link for that in the chat so that you can all download it if you haven't already. I encourage you to download this checklist. It has some interactive links that you can click to a lot of our resources that'll help you through what's on the checklist and what we're talking about today. And you can go ahead and use that. I encourage you all to download it, keep it for yourself, share it with any teachers or admins in your school who might find it helpful in terms of PD training, being knowledgeable about feature updates, and also just those back to school kind of items to check off as you're setting up your Dyknow account. I'll drop that in the chat momentarily, and we'll jump into our session. So I am Tierra Leustig. I am the marketing director here at Dyknow. I just kind of host and facilitate these sessions. The real star of the show is Casey Higgs, our school success director, and she'll be guiding you all through today's session on back to school. So Casey, I'll pass it off to you and let you get started.
Thank you so much, Tierra. Star of the show, I really appreciate that. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about back to school, even though it's absolutely crazy for me to think that students are already back in the classroom. Summer just flew by, and I guess I'm just hoping that this year does look a lot different than last year. I'm sure everyone is, but yeah, let's do it. Let's talk back to school. The season is here, and we've got some tips to share to help make your back to school experience really seamless with Dyknow. Tierra kind of already mentioned the overview, and she showed the checklist. So there's really no need to go over our agenda again. but here it is. And we are actually going to start with something for the admins, but we've got something for everyone today. So teachers, don't worry, we'll certainly get to you here soon. All right, jumping into it with the account management type things, student device maintenance type things. If you're an administrator, I need you to double check some things related to your Dyknow account, like your content filter. Is it new? Has anything changed? Right? If so, you're going to have to add these 4 wildcard URLs to the allowed list in your content filter. Even if nothing has changed in your content filter that you're aware of, it's never going to hurt to double check that these websites are in there. Adding these websites to your content filter is really what makes sure that Dyknow is identified as a recognized and approved resource for use at your school or district. Pretty straightforward, this one. Second, for admins, if you are re-imaging student devices, you're going to need to reinstall the Dyknow Cloud Connector. The Cloud Connector is what allows us to communicate with student devices, so this is an important one. If for some reason you do not see the Dyknow icon on a student's device, that's a good indicator that the Cloud Connector is not installed and needs to be installed. Just as a reminder, here's how you confirm that Dyknow is installed on a student's device. This really is regardless of your role. Remember, you're looking for the presence of the Dyknow icon on the student device. For Chromebooks, here's what that looks like. It's an extension in the Chrome browser, right? That upper right-hand corner. On Windows devices, the icon is going to appear in the system tray, usually in the lower right-hand corner of the student screen. And then for Mac devices, it shows up in that menu in the upper right-hand corner on the student device. So again, that's knowing that Dyknow is installed. Therefore, the device is communicating with Dyknow and that student should be able to be monitored. But even if you aren't re-imaging student devices, admins, I'd really like for you to ensure that all your student devices have the latest version of that Cloud Connector installed on that. The way the Cloud Connector is designed is really such that once it gets installed onto a student device, any updates that we make to it are going to automatically push out onto the student device as well, right? The Cloud Connector is going to auto update. But you can still check that students have the latest version installed, and I'm going to show you next how to do that. Administrators, you'll head to the admin settings section of Dyknow, that little gear icon right in the upper right-hand corner, and then you'll click on the Cloud Connector tab. Here is where you'll find that latest version of the Dyknow Cloud Connector. If your students, if students at your school are using a variety of different device types, you'll want to make sure that you're actually looking at the correct latest version number for the correct Cloud Connector and operating system. But this is the number here that you'll want to note. It's the screenshot here we're looking at on the left-hand side. This is a number you're going to want to compare to the data in the Users tab. So make note of the latest version, then go over to the Users tab, which is the right-hand screenshot we're looking at now. Each student user will have a number in that version number column. That's the version number of the Cloud Connector that's installed on that particular student's device. So that number should match the latest version number in the Cloud Connector tab. If those two numbers match, you're good to go. Your student devices are up to date with the latest Cloud Connector. Awesome. If those two numbers don't match, first, I recommend just restarting the student's device. Make sure its operating system is up to date as well. If the version number then still doesn't match after that, if it's still not up to the latest version, then you're going to want to try to reinstall the Cloud Connector on that device altogether. Okay. Moving on in our checklist, let's talk data. It is a new year, right? So administrators, you're going to need to roll over your data in your student information system, but also in Dyknow. Thankfully with us, it's seamless. In fact, I'm pretty sure that almost all of our Dyknow customers have already rolled over their data in Dyknow, so that's awesome. But if perhaps you're using a new student information system this year, or something major changed with your data, just let us know. We can help you convert your import method in Dyknow or make whatever other changes we need to help get you rolled over. Now, because it is a new year, I want to remind everyone that there's always going to be more scheduling changes, right? There's always going to be more errors right now than there will be later on in the year. It just happens. So I'll ask all you teachers out there to please have a little patience with your admin team. Dealing with all this data is never fun by any means, but we can always work through any errors together. And speaking of data, I want to talk about a couple other things, both about manually creating some more data and then about user roles as well. So first, try to think about any users and classes that you might want to manually create in Dyknow. So any users and classes that need to be monitoring in Dyknow or need to be monitored in Dyknow, but that aren't being imported already with the rest of your SIS data. Let me give you an example. You might want to manually create a class for in-school suspension, or maybe you create a few classes for study hall, after-school programs, et cetera, et cetera. And remember, though, you can assign as many teachers to a class as needed in Dyknow. All of the teachers that are assigned to a class can monitor that class at the same time. So maybe instead of creating 2 study hall classes, you would just create 1 and then assign both teachers to it. When you think about users that you might need to manually create in Dyknow, the example I'll give are the teaching assistants, right? Any specialist teachers, really anyone that needs to monitor students who isn't already listed in your SIS. Those are the kind of users you'll need to manually create in Dyknow. And what about user roles? Let's not forget about those. Think about those too. Think about any users who you might need to upgrade, let's say from a teacher to a tech coach role, or maybe from a teacher to the admin role, a tech coach to the admin role. So that they have a little bit more privileges and maybe can help you support your teachers using Dyknow. Because we're talking about user roles, I do want to share a quick reminder of some of the differences in the Dyknow user roles and permissions. Now, I don't have everything here on this slide, like all of the possible features listed here, but for the purposes of today's conversation, this certainly covers what we need. So any faculty member that's using Dyknow is going to have one of these 3 roles: teacher, tech coach, or admin, right? And all of these 3 roles have the ability to monitor an assigned class, which is anything that will appear on your My Classes dashboard. So you can monitor any assigned class, edit any of your assigned classes, manage your own blocking plans, and then access the class history data for any of your monitored classes. So that's any faculty member. But it's only tech coaches and administrators that have the user and class creating ability in Dyknow. So again, administrators, if you need a teacher to be able to create classes in Dyknow, you can either do so yourself, or you can simply upgrade that teacher to the tech coach role and let him or her create their own classes for themselves. There is a full article on Dyknow user roles and privileges in our Help Center. And I think Tierra was going to share that as well. She mentioned, when she was introducing everything. But that article will have the full list of all of the different user roles and privileges that are within Dyknow. Okay. Moving on in our checklist, this is probably the most fun part of today, in my opinion, today's presentation. We're going now to talk about the latest and greatest in Dyknow. So these are things you're going to want to review no matter what your role in Dyknow is. If you're a teacher, these are going to be things that can help you that can help enhance your use of Dyknow and enhance your classroom experience. But if you're a tech coach or maybe an administrator, these are going to be things that can help you better support your teachers, maybe help you better train, use Dyknow yourself, plan a teacher training session for your teachers, whatever. We'll talk about training in just a bit. But for now, okay, back to the features and enhancements that are new in Dyknow. Our teams have been super busy this summer, and we're excited to share with you a bunch of new things. I'm going to start with administrators. First thing that's new for administrators is the account tab in the admin settings, which allows anyone with the administrator role to view their Dyknow subscription info, request additional student licenses if needed, and even get started renewing their subscription. There's also a new Blackbaud one roster integration available in Dyknow Import Manager, which really will make any admin's life easier if your school or district is using the Blackbaud student information system. You can really easily integrate your roster data to save time and then keep Dyknow up to date year round without ever having to deal with files. It is awesome. Check it out if you're a Blackbaud user. For teachers now, let's see what's new. We recently launched the ability to close out website tabs on student Chromebooks. Tierra and I actually hosted a lunch and learn session on this Chromebook enhancement back in June. You should check it out if you missed it. We reviewed this new feature, which includes the ability for teachers to view both the active and any background website tabs that are open on student Chromebooks. Teachers can also select any of those website tabs, maybe that are open in the background, to become the active website tab on a Chromebook. And teachers can even close off-task websites that are open on student Chromebooks, which is awesome. Teachers are gaining greater visibility into student Chromebook activity, and they're getting a lot more control over student Chromebook activity with that enhancement. The next one I want to talk about for teachers are the two new very positive messages that have been added to the send a message feature. So during a monitoring session, teachers can really quickly, easily send one of our pre-filled messages to one or more students. This enhancement is something that we focused a lot on actually during our July Lunch and Learn, which was all about positive reinforcement. That was last month's Lunch and Learn, so you should check that one out too. Finally, what's new for teachers is a common distractions blocking plan bundle, which is a mouthful, but it helps teachers really quickly, really easily block some like 300 of the most distracting websites and apps on student devices. And we're actually going to take a closer look at this now. So this is probably going to be new to most of you. So the new common distractions blocking plan bundle. Anytime I'm hosting a Dyknow training session, I talk about blocking plans, and I always explain the difference between allow only blocking plans and block only blocking plans. I say that allow only blocking plans are usually easier to create because you're only listing a handful of websites and apps that you want to allow, right? Because you already know exactly where you need your students to go per your lesson plan for that day. Allow only blocking plans are also more restrictive. So they can be especially helpful for those one or two students that may need more help staying on task than others, especially if you use it during a segmented blocking plan. But with block only blocking plans, right, they're less restrictive. And because they're less restrictive, they often work best for students that generally stay on task during class. But also, I mean, there's just an infinite number of possible websites and applications out there that you could potentially block. So sometimes block only blocking plans can just take a little bit longer to create. Well, that's one of the reasons we have bundles. So a bundle is just a group of related websites and or applications that can be allowed or blocked by a Dyknow teacher in a blocking plan. The common distractions bundle that we just released contains like 300 of the most commonly blocked websites and applications for students. It includes social media, games, streaming services, you name it. I'm sure I'm missing one. Games, music, streaming services, social media. But if it's distracting for students and other teachers have been blocking it, it's going to be in this bundle. In fact, we're going to take a look at what's included in the new common distractions bundle now. I recorded a little video of how to enable this blocking plan. So that's what the first part of the video is showing. During a monitoring session, you click that modify blocking button. Then from this blocking page, you'll select block only for the blocking plan type. Then you'll enter common distractions into either the websites or the applications field. It really doesn't matter where you enter it because it's going to populate in both, since it includes both websites and applications. Then you can simply click enforce and let the blocking plan bundle, let the bundle work its magic. All right, you can see in this example, I've enforced the blocking plan. A couple students were sent off task. So the second part of this video now is a scrolling list of all of those 300 websites and applications that are included in the Common Distractions bundle. You don't, of course, have to read all of these right now. You probably noticed that there was a little black drop-down arrow next to the name Common Distractions. If you click on that, the bundle is going to expand as it's looking right now, and you're going to be able to see that full list of contents. So again, like 300 some, there's a lot in here. If it's distracting, it's in here. I highly encourage you teachers to check this out for blocking plans. And since we're talking about blocking plans, I should also remind teachers that you can set up blocking plans at any time, right? So if your school hasn't started classes yet, you can still log into Dyknow and get started setting them up. Or maybe just take a look at them and see if you need to edit any existing blocking plans, just so you're ready for day one. The same thing goes for administrators that can create school-wide blocking plans. Remember, school-wide blocking plans are available to all teachers for use in any monitoring session. Okay, the list is still scrolling, but you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Because there is, here we go. There is one more thing that I need to say about Dyknow product features and enhancements. Oops. Well, if I could navigate my PowerPoint, I will do that. Okay. Last thing I want to say about Dyknow product features and enhancements is that there is more coming soon. In fact, next on the list is this, default blocking plans. So soon, teachers will be able to assign a blocking plan to any of their classes in Dyknow, and that default blocking plan will automatically enforce itself when class starts, which is really, really, really exciting. I mean, we already know that a ton of teachers use the same blocking plans for the same classes, right? So like if you're monitoring science class, you've got a science class blocking plan. For history class, there's already a specific blocking plan, right? But being able to assign a blocking plan to an individual class, it just makes sense. And it should be a huge added convenience for Dyknow teachers. Of course, we're going to let you know when this new feature is released. Okay, now let's move on in our checklist because it's time to talk training, especially for new teachers that have never used Dyknow before. It's really important to remember to introduce all of the tech tools that are available to new teachers at your school, including Dyknow. Of course, you want to make sure that teachers know that they can use it because it's a tool that you're paying for. Our best resource for new teachers, new Dyknow users really, is the Intro to Dyknow article in our Help Center. So it includes a video on how to use Dyknow as a teacher. And it also lists a bunch of helpful tips for getting started with Dyknow, overall just gaining a better understanding for how Dyknow works. For repeat users, I suggest maybe just logging into Dyknow, familiarizing yourself with the software again before class starts, or maybe even reviewing some of the Dyknow basics in our Help Center articles like the monitoring overview and blocking overview, or any of the other tons of helpful resources that are included in our Help Center, which you can find at support.dyknow.com. But whether you're providing training on Dyknow, maybe whether you're participating in a training session on Dyknow, I do think it's important for all users to remember one thing. I want to share one thing, and that is how easy it is to use Dyknow passively. To just click that start monitoring button for your class and let Dyknow go. get back to teaching because Dyknow is doing all the work for you by collecting all of your student device activity data, which you'll be able to access after class in the class history page. Right? Dyknow is the peace of mind that you get when you know you can focus on teaching, focus on your students, and have confidence using technology because you're not going to miss a thing, right? Dyknow provides that paper trail of everything that happened during class. Now that's training. When it comes to professional development though, Dyknow's YouTube page is where it's at. From our previous Lunch and Learn recordings to webinars, Tech Coach Corner, Tech Coach Summit, and so on, take a look. There's some great content in here for teachers, tech coaches, admins, lots of good content to help you develop your skills to better meet the needs of your students. Because that's really the point of professional development, right? Becoming more effective for the benefit of all, but especially for the students. That's the kind of stuff you're going to find here on Dyknow's YouTube page. And if you ever need PD credit for consuming Dyknow resources, like some of the stuff you'll find on our YouTube page, please let us know. Actually, please let Tierra know. I put her email out here now for all to see. We certainly want to do our part to help you get credit for any of the professional development you've done with any of our content. And last but not least, Dyknow support is here to help. And here's how to reach us. You can see this on the slide. Chat with us while you're using the product. New users, repeat users, troubleshooting, questions, feedback, training. We can point you in the right direction. And that's all I have to share with you today. I certainly wish you all the best, this back to school season. And I will now pass the mic back to Tierra to see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Casey. Sorry, I had trouble unmuting myself. Yes, regarding PD credit, anyone who attended today or watches the recording following the event will send you a PD certificate proactively just because this session is a bit more PD oriented. And my email is also on that checklist. So anyone, if you need PD or watch a previous session and want to get PD credit for it, just let us know. We're happy to provide you with a certificate to give to your professional development department. Regarding questions, we did have a couple come into the Q&A. The first one was regarding whitelisting, kind of what you talked about at the very beginning, Casey. And they said whitelisting the Amazon AWS.com link is dangerous since it would give students access to just about anything hosted in S3. Is there a more fine-grained URL or set of URLs we can whitelist instead? Is that a question we get frequently, and do we have a solution for that?
That is a question we've heard before, and we do have solutions for that. There are other ways that you can allow Dyknow in your content filter. Our article specifically in the Help Center shows 3 different options. The first, of course, is that list of wildcard URLs, but there's also, I believe, a DNS list option and a third as well. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I can certainly follow up with you with that link. Or, if you have any specific questions on those other websites, that other second option for always allowing Dyknow, I'm certainly happy to help you with that.
Perfect. I'm also dropping that link to that Help Center article in the chat right now. So actually, that was a broken link that I just put in there, but I'll put that in there. The other question that we got, Casey, is regarding iPads. Damian Kingsbury asked, is this the same process for setting up iPads when adding Dyknow? I know we don't necessarily support iPads in a ton of schools, but is there, some answer to that question?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We really don't support iOS monitoring anymore, including iPads. Since the introduction of Apple Classroom, but I'm really glad you asked because this is something I think I harp on all the time, but feedback is so valuable to us. So if that's something you need, if that's something you want us to be thinking about, you really should let us know because otherwise we won't be. So no, we really don't support that currently, but I am glad you asked. So thank you.
Definitely. Those were the only two questions that we had. For everyone who joined us today, thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope this was helpful for getting back to school with Dyknow. Casey, thank you again for a great presentation. Everyone, if you downloaded the checklist, don't forget to send that to whoever you need to, or whoever in your school would get a little bit of help from having that in front of them and just staying ahead of what's new at Dyknow and getting set up at the start of the school year. We will be hosting another lunch and learn during back to school once we're all kind of back in the classroom at the end of September, as well as a larger back to school summit that's going to be a panel discussion about how back to school is going, just kind of generally not really related to the Dyknow product. So keep an eye out for those events that'll be coming up, and we would love for you all to join us there. Casey, anything else to add before we let everyone go?
No, just again, wishing everyone the best. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend and happy back to school.